Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, July 18th, 2024. This is live stream number 1081. If you're not overly familiar with this show, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I will usually pontificate about a topic related to our hobby. Tonight's a little bit different. We started doing a monthly AMA and Ask Me Anything last month. So weirdly enough, this is actually going to be the last live show for July. I'll explain why in a few moments. So tonight, we are going to do an AMA. And a few people have actually sent in some questions. Of course, those of you out there who might be watching live, by all means, fire away with some of those questions in chat, because this is a live show and there is chat available. Now, it's not on screen. One of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour to be able to take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, if you got a question for the AMA or comment or anything, fire away. I will do my best to respond. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com. For all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. So let's see, who do we have in chat so far? I'm going to take a guess. Chat will be relatively quiet tonight, simply because we really don't have a topic. It's just an AMA. So, and how exciting is that? So first out the gate tonight is one of our good friends of the show. They also happen to be a chat moderator. The Madman is with us. Hopefully we're going to have an opportunity to meet up at Gen Con because the Madman is attending. So do me a favor. You've got my email address. Fire away, touch base with me because I want to make sure that you've got my phone number so you can text me. Because Elliot and I are more than happy to meet up and have a couple of adult beverages or something. So by all means, reach out. Semper Buffo is with us, as is W Forge, Dangar the Mighty, Tessie Trekkie, 245 Trioxin, and Kabuki Kid are all with us in chat. And I will take a guess. The lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is sprinkling glitter onto the banhammer. So yet another of our chat moderators might be lurking in the shadows. All right, so let's get on into the news because currently up for crowdfunding, in fact, it launched yesterday for a Cubicle 7 games, is Victoriana 45E. I've got the latest. It is 1887, the year of Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. A time of opportunity and oppression, magic and technology, evolution and revolution. The second great age of sorcery is over. The arcane aristocracy grows increasingly desperate as the bourgeois technologists rise to eclipse their long-held dominance. Left behind by the progress of the Industrial Revolution, proletariat anger is at a boiling point, and the old social order strains and creaks as the balance of power shifts. The world is in upheaval, change is coming, and nothing will remain untouched. Everyone will have to take a side. Some are quick to step forward, small groups of individuals brought together by shared purpose and prepared to stand up and be counted. The newspapers refer to them dismissively as irregulars, alternately scorning their earnest beliefs or cynical self-interest. Drawn from all walks of life, each band of irregulars is united by its own particular cause. One thing they all have in common, where they are tracking down the horrors that still lurk in London's darkest shadows, overthrowing greedy bourgeois captains of industry in Bermondsey, or throwing a wrench in the plans of degenerate nobles attempting to summon evil gods in Kensington Gardens. Irregulars will be found where they are most needed. Which side will you choose? There is a short Kickstarter video. It's just under a minute. It's going to give you a closer look at some more artwork for Victoriana for 5e.
Welcome to London, 1887. Welcome to Victoriana. It is a time of unprecedented opportunity, a time of progress, a time of revolution, and a time of magic. Fantastical folk and strange creatures walk the streets. Wyvern riders and commercial aerostats dot the skies. Magic and science coalesce to create otherwise impossible technological advancements. But as plots thicken and intrigues tighten around you, neutrality will not be an option. Which side will you choose? Victoriana for 5th edition by Cubicle 7.
This Kickstarter funded easily in its first hour. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover with PDF for a pledge of approximately $55. Seeing that Cubicle 7 is in the UK. Well, now they're in Ireland. So there is that. Or score just the PDF alone for a pledge of approximately $28. Through August 7th, expect the delivery on the PDF is actually this December. The physical book will follow next June. Tessie Trekkie asks, how many editions of Victoriana are we up to now? A third. To my knowledge, Cubicle 7 kickstarted a third edition of Victoriana. This is actually that edition ported over to 5e. To my knowledge, that is what's going on with this Kickstarter. You know, I'm pals with the folks over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment, or I guess I should say Cubicle 7 Games, because that's sort of how they want to be referred to now. But I'll be very honest, I do not care for the artwork. You can tell this is aimed at the 5e D&D crowd. I don't know if this is the same artwork that's in the third edition of Victoriana, but this from the artwork they've been sharing, it's more of that, hey, everybody, let's get all our failed thespian friends around the table, as opposed to playing a game. So some of the artwork they were showing is like repairing machinery. It's like, what is going on with some of this role-play game art? Just like the artwork for the new, not new edition of Dungeons and Dragons that has completely driven a great many people up the wall. I didn't freak out as much as some folks. But I mean, some of it is just like, seriously, really? Hot cross buns? Like, that's in a Dungeons and Dragons book? Really? It's like, what the? Yes. W. Ford says Victoriana had the original edition, and there was a fusion version, and then a third edition. That's what I think, too. I think that's how it's worked. And this is that edition being ported over to 5e mechanics. It's the same team that did Broken Weave, which I'm taking a guess I'll actually get a chance to probably pick up from Cubicle 7 at Gen Con. They also did, the Journey, Uncharted Journeys, isn't that? And then the, background book for 5e, A Good Life or something along those lines. Agile Monk is with us in chat, as is Jose Fernandez. And I think we had somebody else sneaking on in. Jody Connor. So there we have it. Making sure I try to say hello to everybody. Agile Monk said our Uncharted Journeys is amazing. It's actually, as far as random tables go, yeah, it's a pretty cool book. So Agile Monk says, Jeff is going away and leaving us to entertain ourselves for a couple of weeks while he attends conventions on your behalf. Well, I don't know if it's on your behalf, but yes, it is convention season once again. And I had to laugh. I was talking to my brother last night, and he said, he was like, yeah, so Gen Con's the week after Comic-Con, huh? He goes, that's not usually how it works. I'm like, yes, it is. I said, it's almost always like that. Last year, it wasn't. So, Dangar the Mighty says, a new Kickstarter just dropped for a Robotech RPG. How many Robotech RPGs do we need? Steven from Roll for Combat is joining us, says they're going to be attending Gen Con, and I can entertain Steven one-on-one. Well, I will have Elliot Miller hanging with me, too. Well, from mid-afternoon Thursday when he wraps up work, because he's going to be working from the hotel we're staying at. And then I think he's just going to lift it or Uber it over to the convention center. So Steven asks, wait, you're going to Comic-Con too? Steven's going to be there as well. Yeah, we're going to Comic-Con. We go to Comic-Con almost every year. I have been to the last, 5 Comic-Cons? And then I had missed one, and then the 2 prior to that. So, yes, we're going to be actually running all over the place at Comic-Con. And the funny thing is, I like Comic-Con. But as I pointed out previously, it's not something I get anything out of. It's just spending money going to on vacation. That's about it. Paying outrageous prices that all the places around the convention center jacked up all their prices to an insane rate. A hamburger and half of a pitcher of beer, $50. Yeah. 245 Trioxin says, no episodes of The Gaming Gang. Remember, it's The Gaming Gang, not Gaming Gang. And no Roll for Combat. Pretty boring couple of weeks on YouTube. Well, you'll be able to check out lots of stuff. I will have videos, though. I should point that out. There will be videos. So I am planning next week to be sharing a bunch of Steam Forged Games videos. It's going to be a Steam Forged Games week. So I'm shooting all that stuff this weekend, and it will kind of trickle on out. All right, so let's move on to another news story, because another successful Kickstarter we can talk about is now available in print from Troll Lord Games. And it is Castle Zagyig Igsberg's hardcover reprint for Castles and Crusades. Here's what I know. Beneath the shadows of the ancient, dreaded Castle Zagyig stands the fortified town of Igsberg. Its stout walls and cobbled ways give ample refuge to those bold and worthy adventurers who come to the four tours to plunder the dungeons deep of the Mad Mage. Beyond the protective covering of the town's walls and the deep waters of the Urt and Nemo rivers lie a vast rolling countryside from the glittering knobs, the uplands, to the lonely valley. Enter the environs of that most dread of magi. Test your mettle and make ready for the hero's forge that is Castle Zagyig. The book you will hold in your hands is the setting for the famed castle, the monstrous dungeons of legend. And this is more than just a campaign setting. This book contains the town of Igsberg and its environs, which include the town of Garham and 60 different geographic locales, each with their own peculiarities and adventures. The map charts over 1,500 square miles of adventuring terrain, allowing the inclusion of Igsberg and environs into almost any fantasy campaign setting. Each geographic locale has one or more adventures associated with it, offering hundreds of different plots, themes, and escapades players can take their characters on. So you can expect a full-color, fold-out 24-inch by 30-inch map of the environs of Igsberg, a fold-out, full-color map of the same size for the town of Igsberg. I'm assuming it's on each side. 9 interior maps of points of interest, over 600 non-player characters, more than 30 random encounters and event tables, over 50 random encounters offering hundreds of adventure venues, orders of battle for everything from goblins to knights, new monsters, new magic items, new spells for the Castles and Crusades role-playing game as well. Plus, crime and punishment for Igsberg, and over 1,000 adventures and adventure ideas. Now, you can score the 256-page hardcover of the Castles and Crusades Castle Zagyig Igsberg reprint for an MSRP of $59.99. It is available now. If you want, you can just score the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $17.99. So I will be talking to Stephen Chenault at Gen Con. Yes, Troll Lord Games is going to be there. I am going to chat with them. I am going to actually meet their new marketing person. I think that's her title. Her name is Grace. So looking forward to that. Fingers crossed, maybe we pick up some Castles and Crusades stuff to bring back and show off. We will find out. We shall find out. So there was some discussion about a role-playing game for Robotech, and I'm curious who was, because Tessie Trekkie had asked, is it Palladium again? And I did not see an answer to that. So if it's not Palladium, I might share some news on the website about it. I try to, there's just some companies that's like, Chris Lundgren's with us in chat talking about the Witcher role-playing game in PDF is $4.99 right now. We are going to be talking about DriveThruRPG in just a bit. Of course, I already mentioned it regarding Castle Zagyig Igsberg. Perfect for Mirkberg. No, not really. It's Castles and Crusades. But some developments over at DriveThruRPG that I think are pretty cool. So I'll be talking about that in just a bit. But first of all, there is a new Troika role-playing tale, which is available in print from Melsonian Arts Council and Exalted Funeral. Here's what I know about Grabak's warehouse. The interdimensional warehouse of the cruel wizard Grabak towers over the bad part of Troika. Suddenly abandoned long ago, its vast storerooms are still full, watched over by dangerous interlopers and sinister hangers-on. What treasures await you in Grabak's warehouse? Grabak's warehouse is the first book in a series of 1-5 Troika adventures. I do not know what that means. It's almost like a 1/5 scale is how it's being presented. Oozing with adventure, soaked in danger, a return to the rotten roots of British fantasy gaming. While Grabak's warehouse features a traditional dungeon crawl, an emphasis on interconnected levels, nonlinear exploration, and resource management. Over a dozen new enemies, scads of surreal encounters. It is a horrible tale of logistics gone wrong. The 80-page hardcover with PDF is available over at Exalted Funeral for $25. If you want to just score the PDF, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $4.99. Good to see more Troika stuff coming out. There is a wave of new Troika adventures and books that are popping on out from the Melsonian Arts Council. Sean O'Donnell is also popping on into chat. Welcome aboard. So it is Strange Machine Games that's doing the Robotech role-playing game. Didn't they already do a Robotech game? I remember sharing news about Robotech and Strange Machine Games. I don't know if it is an RPG that they did, or maybe it was a board game that they had done, and now they're doing an RPG. But for some strange reason, no pun intended, because it's Strange Machine Games, I want to say it was a Robotech role-playing game. I got to be honest. Fan of Robotech, grew up with it. I remember first seeing that. I was, freshman in high school. I was sort of like, whoa, people are getting killed. That's pretty wild. But then again, back in the day, characters getting killed in, not important characters getting killed in action cartoons was not unusual. Johnny Quest, as an example. A lot of bad guys bought the farm in Johnny Quest cartoons. So yes. Flaming Heron says it's additional stuff for Robotech. Gotcha. I gotcha. Very nice. Very nice. Another successful Kickstarter project is available in print and PDF. And I've got the lowdown on Trails and Tales, the Temple of the Serpent Queen from the Danger Forge. Kaliasa, the ancient serpent queen of Lost Samara. While her empire crumbled long ago, stories of her malice and cruelty have survived the passage of time. Now hushed whispers are heard in the free cities of Thendar. They speak of the return of the Serpent Queen and the rise of her dark temple in the forest of Jilin. Tales are told around campfires that her followers roam the land, capturing the innocent to offer as sacrifices at her altar. The Prince of Belcantir calls for the aid of a brave party of adventurers to travel to the village of Ilkuz and determine the cause of the local unrest. Has Kaliasa truly returned, or is some other agency operating under the shadow of her ancient legend? Who knows what perils await in the dark temple of the Serpent Queen? Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows. Right back to this news. The Temple of the Serpent Queen is an OSR adventure for 4 to 6 characters, level 5 through 7, designed for use with the Osric rule system. There's actually a few different flavors of this you can pick up. In this module, the players will be pitted against the cult of an ancient power known as Kalyasa. I don't know why I just didn't pronounce it the same way the second time. The Serpent Queen of Samara. They will travel to a village in desperate need of aid and venture into a dark and dangerous forest, explore abandoned ruins, encounter new and terrifying monsters, and infiltrate an evil temple where they'll confront the minions of the Serpent Queen and perhaps Kalyasa herself. Part wilderness adventure, part dungeon crawl, this module will present various challenges for new and seasoned players alike. The adventure also includes an optional game mechanic that increases the power of the party's enemies with the passage of time, adding urgency to the gameplay. This module includes 60 pages of old-school adventuring goodness, 8 new monsters, 6 new magic items, as well as 6 pre-generated characters, maps for village, wilderness, and dungeon locations, fully detailed encounter areas and adventure background for the game master, an optional game mechanic, once again, that increases the adventure's difficulty over time, a well-organized adventure divided into introduction, chapters, and appendices. You can grab the 60-page softcover for Swords and Wizardry, or Advanced Labyrinth Lord, or Osric. You can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $20. If you want to just score the PDF alone, you can grab it for $7. And I will say that the Serpent Queen is far more attractive on the cover of the book than the interior art. So there is that. Ian Nicholson is with us in chat and says, I'm really doing some splendid work at the moment. Well, I don't know about that. And Ian would be in happy awe, but they support Tottenham Hotspur and have not smiled since 1961 when they last won the league. I grew up as a Cubs fan. You're preaching to the choir. There was a while there, I wasn't sure I was going to live to see a World Series with the Chicago Cubs. Thankfully, we did. In fact, all of you did too. Melanius from York is also joining us in chat. I got to say, this looks like a pretty cool adventure. And the Danger Forge, which strangely enough, their website is Trails and Tales Games. It's like, okay. Kind of weird. They actually have quite a few adventures that are percolating. I think this is their first that they successfully kickstarted. I mean, I could be wrong, but there are, I think, like 10. It looked like around 10 adventures that are all in various states of design. So like I said, could be kind of interesting. Yes. All right. My final piece of news isn't really a news piece. It's not sell sheet information or a press release or anything like that. But I did want to let you know that Basic Fantasy from Chris Gonnerman is now available in full force over at DriveThruRPG in both print and PDF. The entire release line can be had absolutely free, as always, in PDF, and you can get it at DriveThruRPG as well as basicfantasy.org. Now, of course, the thing that Basic Fantasy is really well known for is that you can pick up printed books essentially at cost. That will remain the same at DriveThruRPG. I was taking a look, comparing the cost of the print editions from DriveThruRPG with Amazon.com, because in the past, that's where you would pick stuff up for Basic Fantasy and print was through Amazon. I don't know if that's no longer going to be the case, or that we will still see the books over at Amazon. Difference in price were a few cents. So I was looking at the soft cover for the 4th edition of Basic Fantasy. It was something like 80 cents more at DriveThruRPG. So just want to mention, because I thought that was pretty cool, because before you could get the core rule book for free in PDF, but all the adventures and things like that were not. So now all of the releases, at least as far as I could see, for Basic Fantasy can be found over at DriveThruRPG. So Sean O'Donnell says, wait, does that mean we can use the Gaming Gang banner ads to get Basic Fantasy? Yes. Yes, it does. If you're, picking up the print editions of the releases, yeah. Yeah, most certainly. Doesn't matter if you're getting PDFs or if you're doing print on demand or what. So there you go. Chris Lundgren says that Buddy and Chris's wife are watching on their big TV. Yes, there you go. Buddy's chirping again. Hello, Buddy. Or I guess I should probably say it like, hello, Buddy. All right, something else I should mention as far as DriveThruRPG is that they launched their Christmas in July sale earlier today. So according to DriveThruRPG, they say it's their biggest sale of the year. I don't believe that, because I think their Black Friday sale tends to be bigger. But it is one of their best deals that they have on a yearly basis. So there are many PDFs that are 40% off. There are some which are even bigger discounts, but you'll have to take a look at like the specials and that. So later on tonight, I will actually have the Christmas in July banner ad up on the gaminggang.com. Yes. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about DriveThruRPG, and you've probably already learned that the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit DriveThruRPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do go a long way to help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Lovely. And there are some of you out there who make not so small donations, such as our friends, the Madman and Agile Monk, Joshua Edwards, spring to mind Kevin King as well. So thank you to all of you who utilize those banner ads and or visit paypal.me/thegaminggang. All righty. I am going to be hosting an AMA, and Ask Me Anything, in just a few moments. I do have some questions that were emailed to me also, so I will be answering those. So if you've got a question kind of floating around, hang on to it, because we will get into the AMA right after a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Who's there?
May.
May who?
Maybe you could use some artificial ingredients in bars from Mars.
Artificial? Never! Artificial is a nasty word at Mars.
Everything's for real in bars from Mars. Milky Way bars, for instance, are made the Milky Way with gallons and gallons of fresh whole-grade A milk, fluffy whites from fresh eggs, not powdered ones, and real milk chocolate, the world's finest. That's why every bite's a luscious, chewy treat. Milky Way gives you real satisfaction because there's nothing artificial in it. Everything's for real in bars from Mars. The best candy on Earth comes from Mars.
After this, would you buy me a cup of Wilkins coffee?
No!
I only go for a man who drinks Wilkins.
Just a matter of getting used to this trick. Sounds like a great idea. Be with you in a minute, Joe.
Take your time.
I dare any cop to reach for this gun.
These girls can't hold down a job to make money, so with a gun in one hand, they go out to get it. Brazen and bold, they stayed hold-ups in the daytime and sluggings at night. They're girls born with a talent for trouble. These girls stop at nothing. No crime is too great, no place too sacred once they go on the prowl. Their disrespect for law and order is a shortcut to a prison term. These girls come from all types of families. They hang out in back alleys and secret hideouts to plan their shameless game. They're girls who live on excitement and crime. Where'd you get that gun?
Take a good look at it, Joe. Take a good look at the gun. Well, it's too late, Joe. I'm going to kill you.
You'll never get away with it. Here, for the first time, is a dramatic picture of the extent and nature of this new girl problem. The story of Gun Girls.
she was in a brassiere. I can just imagine, because you saw Gun Girls was from Eros Films or Eros Productions, something like that. I was like, and what is it with movies where people find someone pointing a gun at them, and the first question is, where did you get that gun? Who cares where they got the gun? Wouldn't your first question be, why are you pointing that gun at me? Where'd you get that gun? I don't know. Gun Girls looked absolutely brutal. It looked awful. So I brought it to you, kind of almost like a palate cleanser, right, for the rest of the show. Geo Rock 1 is with us, as is Gleam 1 RX. Good to see you both. W. Forge says the brassiere scene shocked them in Psycho, not to mention the toilet bowl. Yes. God forbid they'd show a toilet. God forbid people slept in the same beds. Bizarre. Just bizarre. It's, it's America for you. Where we have all these like weird sexual hangups that most people around the world do not have. So okay. All right. Yes. Cleveland 1RX says, second question, do you drink Wilkins coffee? Well, do you? And where'd you get that gun? Oh, wait, I should ask you that first. Where'd you get that gun? Do you drink Wilkins coffee? Flaming Heron said, people sleep in beds? Well, it's one of the things they do in beds. Yeah. All right. So because this is the last show of July and I've, decided to do an AMA every month because I'm such a fascinating subject. We're doing an AMA tonight because it's the July AMA because there won't be any other July streams because I will be at San Diego Comic-Con next week. And then the week after that, I will be at Gen Con. And the reason why I'm not going to have a show next Tuesday is because we might have to fly out on Tuesday because my sister-in-law works for United. My brother works for Southwest. So we fly on passes. So depending on what they call it, the loads, how full the flight is will determine, do we have to leave before Wednesday morning? Because normally we'll leave wee early hours of the morning and try to get on the first flight out to San Diego. Sometimes the second flight out to San Diego for Comic-Con on Wednesday, because with our press passes, we have access for preview night on Wednesday nights, as well as Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So got to keep Tuesday night open because even if we don't have to fly out on Tuesday, I always go over to my brother's to spend the night anyway. So rather than rolling over to their house at 10 o'clock at night, you know how it goes. And then for Gen Con, we are going to go on Wednesday because there is a 50th anniversary Dungeons and Dragons celebration that we've been invited to. Stephen from Roll for Combat is going to. Elliot's going to. Because Elliot wasn't going to actually go down to Indianapolis until Thursday. And then he got the invite and he's like, well, I think there's going to be swag. Which, you know what, if they give us some 50th anniversary t-shirt or something, I'll be happy with that. I've said it before. I don't have a beef with Wizards of the Coast. Do I disagree with some things that they do? Fuck yeah, I disagree with a lot of things they do. But I don't have anything against them. It's they don't care for me because they don't like my no bullshit attitude as far as doing reviews. I tell you what I think. And, a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons stuff over the past few years has not been very good. Don't blame me. Make better shit. Come on. Typical DM is with us. Says game conventions eat their wallet up every time, except for the last one they went to. They held $100 max. Wow. Very nice. Agile Monk hit us up with a super chat. Thank you very kindly. Said they had actually gone over to paypal.me/thegaminggang and also made a donation there. Very cool. Thank you very kindly. Anyway, speaking of conventions, I reached out to Gamehole Con because someone from Thunderworks Games, who makes Role Player and their line of games, they were looking for reviewers, and I reached out, and their press person got back to me, and they said, well, you know, normally we focus on outlets who do board games, but, you know, seeing it's Role Player, which is a board game about creating fantasy role-playing characters, they were like, yeah, we think it should work. And so I wrote back and I said, you do realize we have hundreds of board game reviews on thegaminggang.com. We do. We really do. Herb Richter is joining us in chat. I think this might be a first-time visit in chat for Herb. Welcome aboard. Cracks the Bold is popping on in. So they have to work late, missed half the show, the last 3 shows. Who was it just said they're thinking of? Oh, it was Herb Richter saying they're thinking of leaving Dungeons and Dragons after playing for 30 years, going to Pathfinder. Sweet, very cool. What I would say is ask yourself why you're leaving D&D. And depending on why you're leaving Dungeons and Dragons, moving on to Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered might be a great idea. And then again, depending on what your answer might be, it might not be a great idea. So if you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, you know, we want to go move to Pathfinder because is, you know, too many rules for D&D. Well, don't go to Pathfinder. Cracks the Bolt said they left D&D for D&D about 3 years ago. So yes, I would take a guess that Cracks the Bolt is talking about they left 5e D&D to immerse themselves in a D&D, first edition or original D&D, basic expert, what have you. Very nice. Very nice. Kabuki Kid says they've been playing D&D for over 40 years. Specifically a mix of AD&D and basic expert. No plans on changing. What you enjoy is important. You know, I say this quite often, that a good game master can take a crappy system and do wonders with it. And a bad game master can take a near perfect role-playing game system and shit all over it. Where it'd be like, damn, everybody said that this was a good game, but that game was awful. Don't blame the carpenter's tools, blame the carpenter. Anyway, so as I mentioned, it's an AMA. So the first question I got from a Matt Ryan, and I would highly doubt that it's former NFL quarterback Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan asked, what sort of music do I like? What sort of movies do I watch? And what sort of TV shows do I dig? So let's tackle those real quick. As far as music, I have a very eclectic taste in music. I grew up with rock and roll and a little bit of punk, alternative rock, big deal with. So as far as like dance music and stuff like that, I don't mind something that's got a good beat in that, but it's not like, oh, all right, it's time for me to put that on. So as far as like bands and artists and stuff that I listen to quite a bit, Jackson Browne, Bruce Springsteen, Warren Zevon, love Warren Zevon, the late, great Warren Zevon. Tori Amos. I have seen Melissa Etheridge like 5 times in concert. I used to go see Rush every time they toured for about 20 years. really like Rush, although that whole Anne Ryan thing is sort of like, but so like that. I like some newer stuff. It's like Phoebe Bridgers. I think Phoebe Bridgers is excellent. I was pissed when she didn't win the Best New Artist. I thought that was just a load of shit with the Grammys. I was like, seriously? I'm like, give me a break. Justice McPherson is back with us again. Agile Monk says Jeff loves hillbilly blues music. Hell yeah. Of course, he found me out. Kabuki Kid says a friend of theirs used to be Tori Amos's assistant and would travel with her. I would take a guess. Tori Amos is probably a difficult person to work for. I do not know her personally. It's just the vibe I have always gotten. So I'm not saying she's a diva or a bitch or anything. She seems like the kind of person who likes things a certain way, and that's how it's going to be. But then again, I'm sure a lot of musical artists are like that. So, yeah. So as far as music goes, I mean, I listen to a ton of different stuff. I grew up a huge Beatles fan. I am one of those people who love the Beatles. Elvis, because back in the day, they all used to say, you were either a Beatles fan or Elvis fan. There were no both. It's just very few people were like, oh, I like them both. There were people who didn't like either, which, that's fine. But my mom was a big Elvis fan, she still likes Elvis, but, and she's still around, so I shouldn't say was. Didn't care for the Beatles. My mom did not care for the Beatles. And I'm completely different. And I think part of that is that Elvis didn't write his songs. Elvis musically, skill-wise, was not very strong. So there is that. And I've always kind of gravitated towards artists and bands who write their own music. So, and not, I think that's one of the reasons why I've never been like really big on country. There's some country artists that I do like from like 15 years ago. But most country artists don't write their own stuff. And they don't write their own compositions either. So, and I think part of it is I have a lot more respect and I appreciate musicians and bands and things like that who write their own music, write their own songs. So Chris Lundgren just says Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers is okay. I met Kenny Rogers, actually. Before he started looking like an Asian woman with all that plastic surgery he's had. I tended bar at a resort in St. Charles, Illinois, which not too long ago shut its doors. It was called Pheasant Run. And Kenny Rogers would have this Christmas tour that he would do. And every year he would come and play at Pheasant Run. And there were a couple of times that I actually, I don't want to say got dragged in because they made it worth my while, but it was dinner and the show. So I bartended the dinner because I was normally just a bartender at one of the resort's bars, not, like a banquet bartender or anything like that. But a couple of times they pulled me in and asked me if I would also tend bar for the dinner before his show. And I had to go bring some cocktails back to the dressing room and bring it to Mr. Rogers, dressing room and that. People were nice. They said hello. They didn't treat me like a pissant. So I thought, well, that was nice. The madman says, can't help laughing that the hard rock they listened to as a kid really isn't hard rock anymore. I know. I grew up with the beginning of heavy metal, and there were heavy metal bands that I liked, like Judas Priest and the Scorpions. Stuff now, I'm like, So Mike is with us in chat, asks, what drink did you like or dislike mixing? As a bartender, there wasn't anything that really was a pain in the ass to make, except when you worked at a bar that also had an espresso machine. That was the fucking worst. I worked at the Biltmore in Phoenix, old money resort. And I worked the bar that once 6 o'clock rolled around, there were no other bars that were open to the public in the resort except for the bar that I worked at. And you would have 2 bartenders. And you would also have like events going on, like, with banquet bartenders and stuff. But when those events would end and you might have 500 people break out in the event, the only place they were going to go drink was the bar I worked, which was the main bar of the resort. And we would have nights where it was for 4 hours straight, just 3-4 people deep at the bar. And you're just going, what? Yeah. And then you're also making cocktails for the cocktail servers. And somebody would come up and they'd be like, oh, you've got an espresso machine? I can't tell you how many times I never did this. But I can't tell you how many times that the bartender I was working with would say, yeah, but it's not working. It's broke. Because all of a sudden, now you've got somebody that have to sit there and spend 5 minutes making an espresso while you're slammed. It's like, nope. W4 asks if anybody saw the stirring rendition of the national anthem at the Home Run Derby. I don't even know who that is. I will assume she's a country artist because after I heard about the fiasco, she released a statement and said that she was going to be going into rehab, y'all. It was like, oh, she must be a country singer then. But no, I did not see it. I heard the aftermath. All right, so as far as like movies, I like classic movies. I'm a huge fan of Citizen Kane. In fact, I kind of go back and forth with Citizen Kane and Casablanca being my all-time favorite movies. And Citizen Kane because of just how many revolutionary things in film were done for the first time in Citizen Kane. It's really, really amazing. And then Casablanca has some of the best dialogue in any movie. Just spectacular. Just like real, especially Frederick Marsh, who plays the I think he's a gendarme, I think is what they're called. And he is just excellent in that. I love when they raid Humphrey Bogart's club, Rick's Cafe American, And Frederick Marsh is like, I'm shocked, I say, to find gambling going on in this establishment. And then one of the pit bosses comes up to give him his winnings. And he's like, oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Kabuki Kid says they just saw the last 20 minutes of Casablanca the other day. They were surprised to find it on one of the movie channels. Yes, they still get regular movie channels. Here's an interesting tidbit. Yes, W. Forge, I'm a drunkard. Another classic line. Interesting little tidbit. At the end of the film, they're in a hangar. And you see this airplane being prepped out on the tarmac. Claude Rains, thank you. Thank you, Dice Tales. Why did I say Frederick Marsh? You know what? You know why I always mix the two of them up? Because both of them were in versions of The Invisible Man. Yes, Claude Rains. Thank you. Like I said, why was I thinking that? So you see, and it's like a shot in the distance. And the two people who are out prepping the plane are actually midgets. So they didn't actually have all that space. So they had to force the perspective. So they're dwarves, midgets, whatever, little people walking around this, like 1/4 scale mock-up of a plane. Dice Tail says, love the way he dropped the bottle of Vichy water in the trash at the end. Will Jam for Food is with us. So as far as movies go, I watch anything and everything. I had mentioned previously that not now, but 10 years ago, you can mention the title of a movie, and I would normally at least be able to give you a little bit of a synopsis of the film, even if I hadn't seen it, because I was one of these people. I always read movie reviews. So I would read the newspaper, so I would read all the different movie reviews, even if I wasn't going to go see it. So there we have that. Television shows, I'm pretty eclectic on that too. So currently, I just finished watching the latest season of a show called Trying. I don't know if anybody out there is familiar with that. It's a British show. It's like a comedy, but it's not like over the top comedy. It's a pleasant watch. Like, say as an example, if you watched Ted Lasso, it's kind of that kind of feel good sort of show. So I'd been watching that, of course, watching The Boys. I have not seen the finale that came out today, so don't spoil it. Dicel says Humphrey Bogart in High Sierra is one of the best movies ever. Yeah, he plays such a... I never really cared for Humphrey Bogart as a bad guy. I mean, he could be ambiguous. That was fine. But Hector Stratford's popping on in. Hopefully I've been able to say hello to everybody who is with us in chat. So, of course, anybody have some questions for the AMA, fire away. W. Forge says Touch of Evil is their favorite Orson Welles picture. Yeah, Orson Welles just sabotaged himself. So it was when he went ahead with Citizen Kane, and he was pretty much told that they would ruin him if he went ahead with it. And he did, and they sort of did. I mean, he was still around. I mean, the funny thing is, Orson Welles did a lot of stuff, did a lot of radio. A lot of people really don't know that, especially if you're, don't listen to like old time radio stuff. But Orson Welles was huge on the radio. In fact, Orson Welles actually guest hosted, I think it was for a couple of weeks, for Jack Benny on the Jack Benny Show. So, and if you've ever listened to the Jack Benny Show, that is actually aged fairly well. But Jack Benny was a show in a show. Jack Benny was kind of its Seinfeld for its time. And Jack Benny had surgery, if I remember correctly, and he was going to be out for a few weeks. So they just wrote Orson Welles into the show. Dice Tale says, The Third Man was pretty good. Yeah, I like The Third Man. Music to it is really well done. Typical DM says, the other day you mentioned you used to paint miniatures pretty decently. Do I ever pick up the brush anymore? I did a little bit. It's probably been a couple of years because even though you see here in the Duct Tape Studios, we got lighting. This lighting would not be conducive to actually miniature painting. And this would probably be the only area that I would have, the ability really to be painting without being disturbed or anything like that by like the cats and stuff. So I have not. I was talking about that. I was probably going to look to sit down with my nephew and possibly his girlfriend, because I think she's painting miniatures too, because he's started to paint some Fallout miniatures from the Fallout game that came out a few years ago from Modiphius Entertainment. I gave to him because he's, a big Fallout fan. So I'm probably going to go over there and start showing him some of the ropes. I mean, they were all right. I mean, they looked fine for someone who is just learning to paint miniatures, but. Will Jam for Food, serious question. The Duelist, have you seen it? And what did you think? I have seen it. It's not my favorite movie by any stretch of the imagination. It is a very interesting movie. And I think the acting is really good in it. But it's also kind of weird because you've got Harvey Keitel and Keith Carradine playing Frenchmen. Sort of strange. I like it, but it's not a movie that I would search out to watch. So, because I think the cinematography of the film is pretty well done, but I feel it drags a little bit. So, but I get it, and supposedly it is based on a true story, although the characters' names are different in the film. But there were these two rivals, supposedly, that just continued to, run into each other and duel. So, Dice Cells says, watching Jack Benny walk on stage and say nothing for 30 seconds to a minute and everybody's roaring with laughter is great. And then he says, well, and then everybody starts laughing again. So there is an episode. It's a famous episode. It's probably the most famous episode of Jack Benny. And Jack Benny gets robbed. And the robber says, your money or your life. And then there's silence. And they hold the silence for, I mean, it's not real long. It's probably 20 seconds. But of course, people make it out like, oh my gosh, it's, so long. And then the robber says, I said your money or your life. And Jack Benny, who the shtick was, he was a penny pincher, is like, I'm thinking. And then there's this laughter. And it's a pretty long burst of laughter. I know there have been stories where it was the longest, burst of laughter in radio history or some. Yeah, I'm sure. But, yeah, it is kind of funny. And Mary Livingston, who plays sort of Jack Benny's foil, was his wife in real life. And she was the one who ran the show. Well, I don't mean ran the radio show, and he was on television too. I mean, in the household, it was my way or not. So yes. So Will GM for Food also says I've got a copy of, yes, it's the Player's Guide of Tales of the Valiant. And I have reviewed both the Player's Guide and the Monster Vault. So Will GM for Food says, I have a ton of 5th edition I'm mostly happy with. Do I need Tales of the Valiant? And why? No, you don't. But there you go. Pretty fast answer there. I would say watch the reviews. As far as the Monster Vault, I really like the Monster Vault quite a bit. So I did give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was that good. And I happen to like the Kobold Press take on some of the various different monsters. So it's not just the usual rehash, which you see a lot of times. You'll see best series come out from various different companies, and they might tackle the same classic monsters, but there's really no difference in the approach than for Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of like, okay, so their goblins are sort of the same as the goblins in D&D. All right. That's not really the case with Kobold Press. So I do like that. As far as the rules themselves, like I said, once again, I would watch the review because I get into a bit more detail. I summed it up as, if you like 5e Dungeons and Dragons and you've got really no issues with Wizards of the Coast or anything like that, and if you do, that's fine. That's not an issue. Then no, there's no reason to pick up Tales of the Valiant. There are a few mechanics in there that you can easily port over to your own games. So there's luck. Now, I don't know. Does the not new edition of Dungeons and Dragons have luck? I don't know. There's also a Doom mechanic. They're both game currencies. So one's for players, one's for game masters. So, and you spend these to kind of boost things, right? So you can spend luck to improve your dice roll on a 1-for-1 basis. You can only ever have 5 points. You can spend 3 points of luck to re-roll a die. And then with Doom, the game master has some various different tricks that they can use. And I thought it was funny because somebody commented on the review for I think it was the Monster Vault, because the Monster Vault is where I talked more about Doom, because it's actually delved into in more detail, really. And they said, well, why does the game master need Doom to buff their monsters? They're the GM. Just do it. And I understood where they were coming from. But you do notice a lot of times with these role-playing games that have some sort of kind of currency that the players can spend, a lot of times so does the game master. So the game master feels like they're part of it too, right? Dice Tale says, yes, the Jack Benny robbery sketch was hilarious. Also, Rochester and his violin playing. So here's another interesting little tidbit. I know a lot about old-time radio because I enjoy it. I don't listen to it as much as I once did because I find myself spending more time reading stuff, right? So, and I can't read and listen to something that you need to pay attention to, one or the other. I can't like separate myself, be like, oh yes, so I'm paying attention to the news on television as I'm reading something. My brain doesn't operate like that. So I don't listen to as much old-time radio as I once did. But for one, Jack Benny was a very generous human being. So the character he played was just that, a character. And they went on tours. And if they went to a hotel, which would not let, I'm trying to remember the actor's name who played Rochester. I think it's Eddie something. If they would not let him stay at the hotel, none of them stayed at the hotel. And Jack Benny himself would tell them, he would tell the front desk, well, oh, he can't stay here? Well, then we're leaving. So, and that was at a time when that was pretty unheard of. So, kind of wild. Let's see. Pete Strakulich asks, did I ever meet Gary Gygax? No, I had seen Gary Gygax a couple of times at old Gen Cons in Milwaukee, but I never went up to him or anything like that. Got to remember, if you're not someone who's followed the show, I didn't play much D&D. I played a little bit in 1980-ish, ran it a little bit. But then by the time summer after our freshman year in high school, that was about it. I was done. Because I had moved on. We had all moved on to other stuff. So I ran Call of Cthulhu, and I would sprinkle in some other games too, but it was mainly Call of Cthulhu. And then Elliot would run some stuff, and our friend Daryl on occasion would run something. And then our friend Scott, who I mentioned from time to time, pops in to our chat. He would run stuff. Our other friend Tim Phelan, he would run stuff. But it was never D&D. It was not D&D. So, and I think part of it too was we went to a game day. I've mentioned this before, that when I was in high school, and I believe this would have been the summer after sophomore year, was the first time we went to one of these like game weekends that they had at this community center. And first year they had a D&D tournament that some of us got into, and it was horseshit. It's really what it would be. And it was just kids running stuff. It wasn't like, oh, well, oh, Tim Kask is running. No, it was a young girl and her younger brother, and we got the younger brother running our group, and it was a timed event, and he kept like having to leave to go ask his sister stuff. So we ran out of time before we could finish it up. And, everybody at the table was not happy because it was like, dude, you spent half the time outside the room and we're sitting here waiting. So, Kabuki Kid is talking about Douglas Adams, and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text adventure game. Yes, I did play it. I never finished it. So there is that. Gleam1 RX asks if I could send any role-playing game back to my younger self to be my very first role-playing game. What would it be? Wow, that's kind of a tricky question, right? Because if I send it back to myself to be the first role-playing game I have experience with, it's going to have to be a game that explains role-playing games pretty well. Can't be a game that's got the assumption that you know about role-playing games, because my first exposure to a role-playing game was at the essentially birth of role-playing. So, yeah, let's see. Wow. I mean, I could cheat and just be like, oh, Call of Cthulhu, because that came out a couple of years after I got 2-3 years. So I think it's 81 it came out. I'm up in the air if it was 78 or 79. I think it might have been 78 the first time I played D&D. But I don't know. That's a wild question. Funny enough, you might kind of chuckle at this. I would maybe look at the current edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, because I like WIFRIP. I think it's an interesting system. It's different. It does use a percentile system, but the way that critical hits and stuff like that, success ranks, I think are very interesting, broken off of just a single die roll. So I like that. And I find the adventures to be clever for the most part. So Chris Lundgren's talking about the Star Wars radio dramas from NPR. Yes, I remember listening to those. I recorded those off the radio. Kabuki Kid's talking about the Babelfish puzzle from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text game. Wasn't that Infocom? Wasn't that the company that did like Zork? Chris Lundgren says, if I could bring back an out-of-print role-playing game, which would it be? I've mentioned this from time to time. I think it would be the James Bond role-playing game from Victory Games. I really think it would be. It would either be that or Bushido from Fantasy Games Unlimited. So if I had to choose between the two, I would say the James Bond, because it was such a really well-designed role-playing game. Now, keep in mind, it is a child of its time. So it is crunchier than a lot of role-playing games. And if memory serves, because it's been a long time since I've seen it, the kind of head-to-head between like players or between player character and an important NPC could be a little tricky. But it really did a very nice job of giving you the feel of a James Bond role-playing game. And it was also designed to be run with just a couple of players and the game master. So back at that point in time, that's why you laugh when you look at old Dungeons and Dragons modules and they'll say, oh, it's for 7 to 10 characters, levels 14 to 15 or whatever. You're like, what? It's like, who the hell's getting that many people together for a game? Nowadays, to be like, what? How are we going to do this? And of course, you tweak it with hirelings and henchmen, stuff like that. So a little discussion about Top Secret. I'll tell you one thing that was cool about Top Secret is Dragon Magazine actually had good stuff for Top Secret in their issues. And I think out of course, obviously, Dungeons & Dragons, but I think out of the role-playing games that TSR had and Dragon Magazine, I think Top Secret actually got the best content outside of D&D. Now, I will point out that I did not read Dragon Magazine for the entire run of Dragon Magazine, because why would I? I did not play Dungeons & Dragons anymore. So, Dicel says, Empire of the Petal Throne, time to revive that. Only problem that we get with Empire of the Petal Throne is the author. So that's a little tricky. Kabuki Kid says they played in a James Bond 007 game. It was a hybrid game with Top Secret. Yeah, I would think that should work. Pete Trackledge said they bring back TSR's Marvel. Well, you got Phase Rip. Phase Rip is out there. So, I mean, and I know it's been pointed out before that the core mechanics of the James Bond 007 role-playing game is out there as, a themeless spy role-playing game. So, Lord Cost 2000 has popped on in. All right, one more question, one or two more questions, and then I am going to wrap up. Herb Richter asked, do you think anyone would ever try to pick up the James Bond IP and try to remake it? All depends. And I think part of that has to do with how popular the James Bond franchise happens to be at that moment. So Daniel Craig years, pretty good. So I would think it would be more difficult to be able to arrange the IP. Funny enough, though, James Bond is still with the same folks now as it was back when Victory Games licensed it for the role-playing game. So they were open to it back then. So they would maybe be open to it now. I would take a wild guess that it's probably an IP that they've probably not been approached by many companies looking to do a James Bond role-playing game. Because if you think about it, there haven't been really many James Bond board games. They had Modifius Entertainment did Spectre, and that kind of went over like a lead balloon as far as I know. I don't think it did well for them at all. In fact, last I saw it, it was kind of on clearance. So, So Dicel says they're not going to let Ma Barker's politics influence them, and they're Jewish. Oh, I completely get it. I understand. Got to be honest, though, there are a lot of people out there who would have a problem with his politics. So, Gleamwood RX says Free League can do it. Their adaptations of Aliens and Blade Runner seem popular. Yes, to be very honest, and I will be talking to Tomas from Free League at Gen Con. I'll be talking, I mentioned this already, I'll be talking to Gareth Hanrahan about Moria and the One Ring at Gen Con. I think Free League needs to be careful because I think Free League is getting to the point where they might find themselves spreading themselves a bit too thin and that we will see quality suffer. So I'm just saying, because the last adventure that came out for Blade Runner Fiery Angels was all right. And you could tell that it didn't get the sort of scrutiny that it needed. So I think that the adventure could have been far better with a bit more, I guess I would say, not necessarily play testing, because the reality is most adventures that you run across these days that are from a publisher, an established publisher, isn't really play tested much. But I do think that Fiery Angels did need a lot more development. So, Flaming Heron says, Replicant Rebellion seems to be a step up. I haven't seen anything for it. I mean, I shared news of it, but I haven't seen actual material for it. So I don't know. W4 says, when Free League puts out TJ Hooker, the RPG, we can start to worry. What, do you got a problem with the Shatner? Will GM for Food says, licensed properties are always risky. Oh, yeah. We know that. Thankfully, most licensed role-playing games, most licensed IPs to role-playing games are at least all right. You don't see a ton that just absolutely suck like you do some licensed IPs for board games. There have been some licensed IPs that were just god-awful games. And, of course, video games, too. So, Melwinius asks if I will ever play Sandy Peterson's Cthulhu Mythos. Are you talking about his Cthulhu for 5e, or are you talking about like his Cthulhu Wars stuff? I actually chatted with Sandy, I'd say now it's probably 4 or 5 years ago. And it was kind of funny because he knew I was a reviewer. And he sort of told me what he thought of reviewers. And I was like, well, no skin off my ass, And that's kind of what if I remember, I think that's exactly what I had told him. And then we were talking a bit, and he realized that I was not just some guy who is just, because, I don't mean any offense by this. There are some outlets where the host, the person in charge, whatever, it's all about the games. Where it's just about the games, and if those games were created by robots, they'd be fine with it. There are folks who have like gaming outlets who don't understand the business of getting a board game created. They're not into the inside baseball aspect, as I like to call it, of the industry, the hobby. And they don't have relationships with various people in the hobby, where it doesn't matter who's sending them review copies of the games. It's all just the games, which is fine. But that's not how I operate. So as I talked to Sandy, he realized that I knew my shit. And he became far friendlier with me. Because I was talking with him and there was someone else. I forget who it was. But the reality is probably not. There was a card game that I got, and it wasn't from Sandy Peterson Productions or whatever, but it was from friends of his, and they were selling it at his booth. And they convinced me to take a review copy with, and it was fucking awful. It was a really bad game. Vaughn Moore's with us in chat asking if I'm going to review Knave 2nd Edition. Probably not. If Ben Milton wants to send me a copy, shit, yeah, I'll review it. But you probably already know, most of you watch this, you know I do not really have much of a budget. So it is pretty much whoever decides they're going to send me review copies of stuff, that's what we're looking at. And I'm also not a person who's like always, oh, hey, hi, gimme. It's just never been my style. I have never been like that in the, oh my gosh, almost 14 years I've been doing this. So I'm just not comfortable like reaching out to people, me like, hey, do you know my outlet? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, send me stuff. But yeah, if Ben Milton wanted to send me Knave 2nd Edition, I'd be more than happy to. Mothership, this is a situation where someone who watches the show asked me if I'd be interested in reviewing it. And I said, yeah, of course. I've talked about Mothership 1st Edition. And they actually sent me the funds to buy this. So, and they want to remain anonymous, so I'm not going to say who it was. Speaking of Mothership, this is one of my next reviews too. So while I'm off at Comic-Con, you'll probably see that review pop up. But yeah, that's basically it. That's how it works. Dicel says they think it would be hard making up a 007 adventure. Besides sneaking around to steal stuff, I kind of got nothing. Well, look at any like espionage game. Like finding out who's the mole, who's the leak. That'd be an example of a mission. Tracking down stolen tech. That'd be another one. You could just swipe Mission Impossible and make it Bond. Come on. We talk about this all the time. Crib anything you want from any place for your game. It's okay. It's all right. All right, that is it for this time out. This is the final show for July. Wow. I'm going to tell you, next time you see me, I'm probably going to be pretty exhausted. Well, okay, I take that back. Next time you see me live, I will probably be pretty exhausted. But that's okay. I'll have fun. I'm really looking forward to Gen Con. Elliot and I always have a blast. And funny enough, he and I can have a good time doing just about anything. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you, because not only were you keeping me company and providing me with some questions, but you were also keeping each other company too. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. It doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the nearly 2,000 videos here on the YouTube channel. And of course, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. In fact, if you haven't already, what's stopping you? But always make sure you ring that bell, because it will let you know not only when I do this, and share the Dispatch Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also inform you when I share other videos, such as my upcoming review of the core box set for Mothership First Edition. So stay tuned for that. Yes. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. And of course, enjoy yourself the next couple of weeks. Hope everything goes well for all of you out there. I expect to see each and every one of you once again because you owe me money. No. So it's going to be weird. Same thing happened last year. No, I take that back. 2 years ago, because I didn't do any live shows for little over 2 weeks because it was Comic-Con, Gen Con, back to back. So it's going to be kind of weird not to be doing any live streams. If I decide to try to do something live while Elliot and I are at Gen Con, I will let folks know through our community section of our page. Yes. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.